Well, god dang it, Larry, you'd probably wrote one of the best books I ever did read. Welcome back to StoryTube, everybody. This review is actually, it's not a review, it's my thoughts on one of my favorite books that I've probably ever read. It is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. I'm gonna get it because it's on the floor. Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry, which maybe 6 months ago this cover would have did absolutely nothing for me. Would have done absolutely nothing for me. But now I'm like, yeah. And look, Westerns, me and Westerns, I was always like, yep, this is not for me. I'm not really into cowboys. But this year, last year actually, it's 2024 now, I read True Grit, Blood Meridian, and Lonesome Dove. And did I read another one? I don't remember. Doesn't matter. And I think I actually do like Westerns. So, yeah, this cover does actually appeal to me now. Also, these are the UK printed editions from Pan Macmillan. And let me just say that this was a joy to hold and a joy to read. Nice and floppy. Because it's a big one. This is a beefy, epic tale. And yeah, it's one of the best books I've ever read. I'm going to put it down. And I'll maybe whack up the cover there. And just chat about this book. Because this is a book that, if I were to tell you the premise, and you're not into cowboys or cows or farming or bringing a bunch of cows from Texas to Montana, which is one side of the US to the other, you'd probably be like, is that all this book is? No, that is not all this book is. It honestly, that is probably one of the least important aspects of this here book. This is a book about life, and it's a story of people, and it is I think it's my favorite of the American books that I read last year. So if you've been following this channel for a little while, you know that sort of the second half of 2023, I began this little project of getting into some American classics, or at least 20th century important American works, searching for the great American novel, perhaps. And I mentioned the other Westerns that I read, and I liked True Grit. It was fine. Blood Meridian was amazing. But I think Lonesome Dove is my book. It's my Western. And I'll try to compare it a little bit to Blood Meridian. I did a review on Blood Meridian as well, if you want to go check that out. But I think Lonesome Dove really takes the cake for me in the anti-Western battle. This is what is known, I guess, as a revisionist Western or an anti-Western. Sort of. Lonesome Dove is a Western. But it takes a look at the mythology, similar to Blood Meridian. It takes a look at that romanticized time period in American history. This is set in the 1870s in Texas. Although, once you get about 200 pages into the book, all the characters travel up to Montana. So it's a bit of a journey through the American wasteland at the time, because a lot of it was still quite unsettled. By the end of the book, we're reaching the end of that time period. But this one takes the cake for me over Blood Meridian because of the balance in tone, and I think Larry McMurtry's fundamental belief in people is my fundamental belief in people, but he has a way of showing you these people and stripping them back to who they really are and what they want and what they believe in, and the stupid idiosyncrasies that people have, that they're just some of the most real characters that I've ever read on a page. He captures all of the contradictions in people, all of the lovable bits, the hateable bits, the stupid things that people do when they lie to themselves, or if they're hiding from the thing that they really should be doing. He writes that so well, and it captured my heart So I think that's why I liked it more than Blood Meridian, which I found more just an impressive work of literature. This is a sweeping book that just swept me away. I forgot I was reading a book. And that to me is the best experience when reading. Is when you just get sucked into it, you're whisked away into a story of these characters that you love to hate and hate to love, and you just want to see them succeed, and you know not everybody will get the ending that they deserve, because that's life. Things just happen, and there are bits that seem random and unplanned, and well, that's not part of the script. Larry McMurtry does all of that so well. And I think to move away from the comparison to Blood Meridian, there's one final thing actually that I wanted to mention, is that to me Blood Meridian, in terms of the two greatest westerns, I guess, seemingly online, Blood Meridian is like a painting. It's like a violent, abstract painting that you can look at it and dissect it and appreciate it and see the masterwork for what it is. But the star of the show is McCarthy and the art itself. Lonesome Dove is like a HBO show where you love all of the characters. It is so compelling. You grow to love it. You grow to then binge it, which, by the way, I'll talk about that in a second. But the star of the show here is not actually McMurtry. The star of the show here is the story. So I think that's the biggest difference in how I can kind of explain it without over-explaining it. The thing that really struck me is also the balance in cast. Westerns, typically in my mind, are a bunch of cowboys shooting Native American people, and there's always going to be a damsel in distress or something of that nature. Kind of typical, pulp fiction, like Sword and Sorcery. I have the same sort of notions about it. I think Larry McMurtry tore all of that down with this book, but did it in an extremely human way. There are some cowboys in this that are traditionally masculine, if you want to use the modern toxic masculine phrase. There's absolutely characters here that could fit into that mold, but then there's also men in here that are quite progressive for the 1870s, but they're just human beings. They're kind people. And Larry McMurtry is saying to me that both of those types of people can exist. And there's also a very balanced cast. There are some women in this cast, which was very refreshing. And they are point of view characters, which was very refreshing. And they are all different enough from each other. All of the characters in this book have a personality, a very distinct personality. And they all want different things. You might have women in this book who want to be a mother, want to be a housewife. You will have women in here that just want to go out traveling with the cowboys. They just want to get out and see the world. And they're not interested in any of this dilly-dallying with cowboys. They're not interested in the stupidity of the male gaze, and maybe sometimes use it to their advantage to get what they want. There's a wonderful balance in ages between young people and old people in this book, or older people. There's the two main characters, I would say, I'd say there's three main characters. So there's Augustus McCrae and Captain Woodrow Call. Those are two former Texas Rangers, old guys, sort of at the end of their careers. They've retired from the Texas Rangers and they now own a cattle farm. And that's where they work. And Augustus is sort of nostalgic for the old days, and he's quite a storyteller, and he's an idealist. And he talks about the old days when he used to be looked at as a hero in these parts. And Captain Call is the stoic, former soldier, always needs to be doing work because life's purpose, life's work is duty. And he's a very non-lazy person, but also a very masculine person, very closed off, emotionally unavailable. And the two of those bounce off each other extremely well. They're best friends, but they couldn't be more different from each other. But he writes them so humanly. And then the third main character for me is Lorena, who in this town, Lonesome Dove, they live in this town, Lonesome Dove, she works in the local tavern as a prostitute. And her journey in this book is fascinating. She's a brilliantly written character. Her internal monologues and her internal thoughts are so compelling to follow, because she decides to leave that career behind and go off with the guys on the cattle drive to Montana. So when a former Texas Ranger buddy of theirs comes back into town and says, hey, Montana is probably a good place to raise cattle. It's very green, it's unsettled land, and we should all go up there and make loads of money. They all decide, yeah, why don't we do that? Because the guys are a little bit bored, they want another adventure, and that's what they do. And then for the next 600 pages, that is exactly what they do. And it's all the trials and tribulations and the figuring themselves out along the way. And there's a great balance between the youthful, so there's also a young character called Newt, who may or may not be the son of somebody, who is the young idealist, and he looks up to both Gus and Carl in different ways, and he's trying to figure out who he wants to be in life. Does he even want to be a cowboy? What does he want? But it's what's expected of him. He has no education, so there's nothing really else he can do. But he's still got that youthful optimism of wanting to be like his heroes. And will he remain that way throughout the journey? Will he start to see these people who are basically two father figures to him as the superheroes as he sees them? Or will he see all of the flaws that come out in them? And will he begin to realize that just like him, they don't know what the fuck they're doing in life? And I just love that balance between the young perspective and the older perspective of like, we never really know what we're doing. He writes that with such warmth that this is not a bad thing. This is just the way life is. And it makes you root for all of these people. And there's characters like Jake Spoon, who is the character that comes back, the adventurer, the wild man, the womanizer. He's the one that comes back and tells them to go off to Montana. And he's a gambler. He's a bit of a degenerate, not too much. He likes to drink, he likes to gamble, he likes to have a good time. He likes the adventure. He likes the thrill of life, or the thrills of life. But he's not a bad guy. I really, really like how McMurtry paints these people. There are some people in this book that are bad, that are not good people. He also doesn't vilify them. And then with the people that are more questionable, like Jake Spoon, he still shows you that these people do care. They're just a bit lost, or they're just a bit immature, and that they need people around them to keep them grounded, I guess. And if they don't have those people around them, bad things could happen. And I just like that ultimate faith in people that McMurtry has in this book. And it really made me connect to it emotionally, which is why it's probably one of the best books I've ever read, because it's one of those grand epic tales that goes on for 850 pages. So you're with these characters for 850 pages. And by the time you get to the end, you feel like you have been on this journey of life discovery with every single one of them. Some, of course, reach the end of their journeys. Some maybe reach the beginnings of their own. The main theme that stood out to me in the book is that of unfulfillment and regrets and teetering on the edge of optimism and pessimism and hope and despair. And at what age do you reach that? And different people reaching that at different ages, or some people never reaching that at all. And I think Gus and Carl are very much representative of the optimist and the pessimist. And Newt is the young character, the impressionable young man who is caught in between that struggle. And Lorena is the one who is trying to burst out of the shackles of both of those options, pretty much. And she is the most interesting to me because of the time period and the hyper masculine environment of a Western cowboy ranch. And she just wants to reject all of it and do her own thing and see the country, or see the world. That theme of unfulfillment and finding your own purpose along the way is really what this book is about. And you could take that story out of this setting with this scenario and put it with anything else, and it would be the same story. It would be the same ultimate message and the same types of characters. So yeah, the fact that this is a cattle drive from Texas to Montana in the 1870s really doesn't matter. I would urge everyone to read this book at least once in your life. I'm probably going to reread it in a few years. And it's just, it feels like an important book. It feels like the kind of book everybody should read. I would recommend this book to anyone and everyone. It doesn't matter if you're not into Westerns or not, because I wasn't into Westerns. I think ultimately the comparison between Blood Meridian and Lonesome Dove of like, Blood Meridian is the painting, Lonesome Dove is the HBO show, I think sums it up better than all of this rambling that I could do about the book. But I really just wanted to make a video, put it out there on the channel, because I've discovered one of my favorite books of all time. So I want to put this out there and remember it and get more people to pick it up. Even if you're not American. I'm not American. I don't give a shit about cows. I don't give a shit about the driving cattle from Texas to Montana and the difference in weather between Texas and Montana, or the trail in the 18th. I don't care. But Larry McMurtry made me care, because the characters cared. So that's kind of all I have to say about that. But yeah, Larry McMurtry wrote a Western that is one of my favorite books ever. I don't have a lot of criticisms of it. My one thing is the first 200 or so pages are a little slow in terms of getting actually moving, because you're told pretty soon that they want to go to Montana, and then it takes them 200 pages to actually set out on the road. But his character writing and the situational relationships between the characters are so compelling and funny to read that kind of flies by. Now, it took me 2 months to read this book, but it was because I was reading other stuff at the time. It wasn't that I was necessarily struggling to get through the beginning of it. It was just, I was chipping away at it bit by bit. And honestly, it kind of made the experience better, because it's such a long journey that they go on. I took that extra time to read the book. It kind of made it more of a lasting impression on me. Larry McMurtry, if you've read this book, let me know down in the comments what you think about it. Let me know if you think my review is any good. I don't have any criticisms. I'm sitting here trying to come up with criticisms or like constructive review type stuff for this book. I don't care. I don't care. This is a great book. If you like this video, give it a like. Consider subscribing if you're new to the channel. I'm going to be delving into more works of 20th century American literature. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.